Welcome back. Classified documents from President Biden's time as vice president discovered at a Washington think tank just days before the November midterms. But we're only finding out about it now. Biden refusing to answer questions from reporters yesterday. Joining me now is former chief of staff to Vice President Pence and Advancing American Freedom co-chair Marc Short. Marc, good morning to you, and always great to see you and have you on the program. It's so interesting because you think back to the Mar-a-lago raid and all of the chaos that surrounded that experience and President Biden's response to it, calling former President Trump irresponsible. And now we have this new news about his documents from Vice President, classified documents that are now being unearthed. Your thoughts about how this is going to be treated as we move forward, if anything happens at all?
Good morning, Jackie. I think that it underscores the concern that so many millions of Americans have that there is a double standard when it comes to the Department of Justice and many investigations. It's why House Republicans today are launching a subcommittee at the Judiciary Committee to look into ongoing investigations. And I think that, I can't explain why Vice President Biden would have had those documents, and certainly I can't explain why President Trump had classified documents at Mar-a-lago. I think President Trump's biggest liability was not having them. It was the misrepresentations his legal team gave the Department of Justice that they had turned them over. But I think the biggest impact here, probably, Jackie, moving forward, is that the Department of Justice, it appears, has really moved beyond the January 6th incidents and wanted to focus on the classified documents, thinking that was a stronger case. Well, certainly if President Biden had kept classified documents as well at a D.C. think tank, I think that creates a lot of challenges for that investigation. And again, I think it underscores the concern that so many Americans have that there is a double standard at the Department of Justice right now.
Yeah, it sure does. And that's actually a really great point that you bring up, that if the strategy shift is to focus on the documents, it becomes really difficult to make that argument when the current sitting president, when he was vice president, did something very similar. Having said that, let's switch gears for a moment. McCarthy's fight for the title of House Speaker might be over for now, but there are more hurdles, of course, in store for the 118th Congress in 2023. House is getting back to work yesterday, voting on rules that will set the tone for the next 2 years or so, and also limit the speaker's power. So the ability for McCarthy to actually get things done, in your view?
Jackie, I think that Kevin's in a pretty solid position right now, frankly. I think that for the next 9 months, the role of House Republicans will really be to slow down and stop the bad initiatives of this administration and Leader Schumer. So there's not going to be a lot that's coming forward that's actually become law. Most of what's coming forward, the Republicans will be doing, is trying to stop the bad stuff that Democrats are looking to do. I think that will change in about 9 months when we get to the issues of funding the government and the debt ceiling, as Maria was talking to Jamie Dimon about. And I think, there's a lot of conversation today that a lot of what the rules are doing is providing more transparency, which is great for the American people. There's also been a focus on the spending. And Jackie, I hope that the conversation moves a little bit beyond where it is on the discretionary spending, because it's such a small fraction of what the overall debt is. The reality is that the vast majority of our debt is in entitlement spending and mandatory spending. And so when you see that we're at $32 trillion in debt, and for the first time since World War II have 100% debt to GDP ratio, the biggest driver of that is the entitlement spending that nobody's talking about. And that's where I hope the conversation moves in the days ahead.
Yeah, we certainly are very, very leveraged. It's mind-blowing when you think about it. Marc, Maria also sat down for this exclusive interview with JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon at the JPMorgan Healthcare Conference, as you heard earlier. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say when he was asked about the administration's policies, specifically environment, social, and governance, known as ESG. Listen.
So you're not going to shut down lending to these companies that may not be in the narrative of the Democrat Party?
I'm not going to stop lending to anyone that's in the narrative of any party. We will decide for ourselves what the risk is, whether they want to do it or make sense. And it may not always be that you agree with it or the Republicans agree with it or the Democrats agree with it.
Marc, your thoughts on this issue? Really hot topic.
Well, Jackie, certainly that's the role that every bank should have, is trying to provide returns for its investors. Sadly, one of the most insidious parts of this environmental agenda has been to go around the Democrat process and basically influence what banks are lending to various private sector companies to push their agenda that wants to continue to take away choice, whether it's what kind of car you can drive or what kind of stove you can have. And I think that Americans are frustrated and tired of it. I applaud the governments in West Virginia and Utah that actually have passed bans on banks that enforce these ESG standards, because it is nothing but trying to pursue a left-wing agenda. And the people they're hurting in many cases are the pension holders, the people who actually have retirement funds in the state who are just trying to get a bigger return. And instead, because some banks are refusing to lend to pursue a radical left-wing climate agenda, they're hurting those in their states that are retirees. They're looking for that income that funds should be generating. And when banks decide they're not going to lend based upon a left-wing agenda, you're actually hurting not just those private sector companies, but in many cases, the government employees who are retirees in those states. So again, applaud West Virginia and Utah and hope more states will follow.
I hear you on that. The flip side, of course, is that, the banks are sort of funding the ESG to move forward, and that has other ramifications. So, I mean, it's a debate. I totally hear you. Marc Short, great to see you this morning. Thank you so much for your time.